The shovel struck something solid. At first, it just seemed like another stubborn tree root. But as Matthew scraped away more dirt, what emerged wasn't organic at all. It was metal. Old, rusted, circular, and bolted shut. A hatch. And that's when everything began to change. Before we dive into the chilling discovery that turned this family's peaceful life upside down, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to Kindness Stories. The truth buried beneath the earth isn't just terrifying, it's unforgettable. It had started so simply. The Wilsons, Matthew, his wife Ellie, and their 11-year-old daughter, Harper, had only moved into the sleepy Connecticut countryside 2 months ago. The charming farmhouse had been sitting untouched for nearly 20 years, the overgrown backyard tangled with ivy and secrets. They were the kind of family that believed in fresh starts, and this property, with its creaking porch and gentle hills, seemed like the perfect canvas. Matthew had taken on the task of reclaiming the backyard from the wilderness, working through the summer weekends with sunburned arms and mud-caked boots. On that Sunday afternoon, he was clearing near the back edge of the property when he hit the strange, metallic resistance. He paused, called for Ellie, and they knelt together to brush away the remaining soil. When the full hatch came into view, a rusting circle with a large iron handle and 6 padlocks around the rim, they both just stared at it. "Is this a storm shelter?" Ellie asked, half wondering, half hoping. But Matthew already knew it wasn't. Something about the way it was hidden, buried deep, bolted down, and completely unmentioned in any of the property documents, felt wrong. The next morning, he contacted the local municipality, but no record of a shelter or bunker on their property existed. The man on the phone simply said, "That house used to belong to a retired scientist. Bit of a recluse. Never registered much of anything." That sent a shiver through Ellie. "Do you think it's safe to open?" But curiosity, as it always does, won out. Over the next few days, Matthew carefully removed the corroded padlocks one by one. Harper would sit nearby on the swing set, watching, sometimes offering guesses about what might be inside. "Treasure," she'd said once. Or maybe a bomb shelter from the Cold War. On Friday evening, with a slight groan and a hiss of released air, the hatch finally gave way. They peered into darkness. A narrow ladder descended into the earth, swallowed by shadows. A stale, metallic smell wafted up, something old and untouched. Ellie felt uneasy immediately. "I don't like this," she whispered. "Let's wait. Maybe have someone inspect it." But Matthew, flashlight in hand, was already climbing down. The walls were concrete, lined with decaying insulation. The air was thick and unmoving, like something had been sealed too tightly for too long. At the bottom, the room widened into what looked like a small underground facility. There were old desks, scattered papers, rusting filing cabinets. Wires dangled from the ceiling. On one wall, an emergency power panel flickered weakly. Ellie followed, against her better judgment. Harper stayed above, calling down now and then. They moved cautiously, shining their flashlights across the dusty floor. In the far corner of the bunker was a thick, sealed door, painted red with fading yellow warnings printed across it. Ellie shined her light on the lettering. Biological testing area. Restricted access. She stepped back. "Matthew, this wasn't a shelter." Matthew opened a drawer. Inside were dozens of sealed files labeled with cryptic codes and dates. He opened one at random. Inside were lab reports, handwritten notes, and photographs. One caught his eye, a blurred image of a child's face, eyes blacked out with ink. Below it, the caption read, "Subject 17, Extreme Sensory Response Noted. Exposure duration, 4 hours." "This is a lab," he said slowly, heart starting to pound. "An illegal one," Ellie added, her voice barely audible. "We need to go? Now." But Matthew couldn't help himself. He moved toward the sealed red door, heart hammering. His hand reached for the latch. Then Harper screamed. It was loud and piercing, echoing down the metal tunnel. Matthew and Ellie scrambled up the ladder, nearly slipping on the rungs. At the top, Harper was pale, pointing toward the tree. "I saw something," she said, breathless. "It was watching." They turned quickly, but the edge of the woods was empty. Only the wind stirred the high grass. That night, none of them slept. Harper was shaken, convinced something was outside. Matthew double-locked the doors. Ellie paced, mind spinning over the files they'd seen. Who had built that place? What was it used for? And why was it buried and forgotten? The next morning, Matthew returned alone. He wanted to understand. He needed answers. This time, he entered the red door. Inside was a chamber, small and suffocating. There was a chair bolted to the floor, leather straps hanging from its arms. A cracked monitor screen blinked, showing nothing but static. A large glass panel covered the far wall, and behind it was another room. The room was empty, except for a figure in the corner. Matthew froze. It was small, childlike, its head tilted down, long dark hair covering its face. It wasn't moving, but something in its presence felt utterly wrong, like gravity bent around it. Matthew staggered back, nearly knocking over a metal tray. The sound must have triggered something. The figure's head snapped upward. Eyes, black as ink, unblinking, staring straight at him. He turned and ran. Back up the ladder. Into the light. Gasping. Ellie was waiting, frantic. "What's wrong? What happened?" There's something down there," Matthew choked out. "A person. A kid, no? Not a kid. I don't know." They called the police. Officers arrived, skeptical. They searched the bunker and found nothing. No files. No red door. No chair. The room was empty, stripped bare. "You sure you saw this?" the sheriff asked, giving Matthew a hard look. Matthew was silent. He could still feel the eyes on him. That night, Harper woke up screaming again. This time, she swore someone had been whispering from the backyard. Ellie had had enough. "We're leaving. Tomorrow. I don't care." But by morning, Harper was gone. The window was open. Her bed was empty. And the hatch to the bunker was open. What happens next will shake you to your core. Before we continue this terrifying journey, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Kindness Stories. The truth behind this hidden bunker goes deeper than you can imagine, and what's waiting in the dark is still out there. The morning air was thick with dread as Ellie screamed Harper's name into the trees. Her voice cracked from panic, echoing through the open field and dying into silence. The police returned quickly, this time taking the situation more seriously. A child missing, vanished in the night, and that too with a family already spooked by something deep underground. The small town's sleepy calm had officially been shattered. Matthew stood by the open hatch, trembling. It was locked. "I locked it last night, I swear." The officer peered down into the darkness. "And you're saying she went down there?" Matthew nodded slowly, but his voice was barely a whisper. "She didn't go. It took her." They searched the bunker again, this time with floodlights and more hands. Still nothing. The red door was gone. The room with the chair no longer existed. Even the smell, that strange stale chemical odor, had vanished. But they did find something. On the wall, scratched hastily with what looked like fingernails, were the words, "Help me." "It's still here." Ellie broke down. She was holding Harper's small blanket, the one she always slept with. It had been found neatly folded on the second step of the ladder. The Wilsons were taken to a nearby hotel, while the police continued investigating, but no one had much hope. Missing person posters were printed, and volunteers scoured the woods, but Harper was just gone. The town whispered about the cursed farmhouse, about experiments and ghost children. Stories started to surface. Neighbors recalled hearing strange mechanical noises from the property years ago. Others claimed a woman used to scream from the woods late at night. But none of that helped bring Harper back. Matthew couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. He kept revisiting the bunker, sometimes multiple times a day, searching for clues. Ellie was slipping into a quiet kind of despair, the kind that looks like silence but feels like drowning. Grief doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just sits in the corner, waiting. Then, on the fourth day, the TV in their hotel room flickered to life on its own. The screen showed static for a moment. Then it cleared, and there she was, Harper, sitting in the corner of a dark, concrete room, eyes wide and terrified. She didn't speak, but her lips moved slowly. "Help me. Daddy. Please." Then the screen cut to black. Ellie screamed. Matthew leapt forward, fumbling for the remote. But nothing worked. The power shut off entirely a moment later. When they called the front desk, the woman said the room had experienced a sudden outage, but no one else had reported anything strange. Matthew didn't wait. He drove straight back to the house. He descended the bunker alone. And this time, it was different. The red door was back. It wasn't just visible, it was open. The corridor beyond it had never been there before. Long, narrow, lined with flickering lights that buzzed faintly as if on backup power. It reminded him of old hospital